So good afternoon. Today is the 28th of September. This is CSC235, the ACS Technology Virtual Lab. And what we'd like to do is basically jumpstart the creation of a new virtual machine. So you'll remember what we're seeing here is module 1. And does everybody remember the assignments and the solution in module 1?
Yeah, the first step was to optimize.
So you basically made sure you had the textbook, then you downloaded server software and got the license keys. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
That is correct, yeah. From the Microsoft Azure Education website, right? And if you have that, then you're ready for our next virtual machine build. And then we have an assignment that you did to prepare your host machine for that kind of thing. So you walked through how to optimize your personal technology, and then you built a Linux VM. Does everyone, is that consistent? Does that ring a bell with everyone? So when you go into your virtual box, you're seeing Debian. Is that accurate? Does everybody remember that?
Yep.
Okay. So we built a virtual machine, and we used Linux to create something with a smaller footprint. And then what we wanted to do was to extend our understanding of how to create and build, and then how to configure and manage virtual machines. So what we want to do is create a scenario from the beginning where you get a chance to make changes and then roll them back, and make changes and roll them back. We introduced more about snapshots in module 3, but we're going to set the stage for module 3 snapshots with what we do in our next module. So the module 2 configuration and maintenance of virtual systems. We want you to be able to work with those snapshots, and we've already explained a good bit about this. Did we already say that you're working through chapters 5 through 7 of the textbook? Did I mention that in the previous class? 5 through 7 in the textbook. The other thing I would tell you is that we're going to create we're going to list a separate assignment. And because it's involved, I think what we're going to do is put 2 solutions in this module, okay? Now you have a solution that has to do with VM configuration and maintenance, 5 points. And we could continue that solution using your Linux machine. But I want you to be able to speak more than one language in terms of virtual machines. I want you to be able to do some things in Linux and then also do some things in Windows. So we're gonna add a component to this module so that you get a chance to experience each of these assignments and the solutions in both environments, in Linux and in server, Windows, in Windows. And you've already got the tools that you need to go ahead and start the process. So what we're going to do today, before we get into the first assignment, is we're going to start the process for 2.0, a solution about the creation of a standard server edition Windows 2022 system, okay? And what you're going to use to create this is that you're going to use the activation key that you captured here. And I know I said server 2019, but in class I said server 2022. Is there anyone in class that downloaded server 2019 instead of 2022? I should have updated that. Everybody see that I said no credit will be posted unless the latest version is used?
Yeah.
Okay. So I qualified this and said the video shows the steps used for server 2019, though you must download server 2022, and I actually updated this assignment so everyone has that, right? In here, I should have my server software. And you, if you downloaded the correct one, your server ISO should read 634,624 in terms of the size, right? So when you look at that particular download, it should read updated July 2023, and you should see 634,624. Now, if you're on your system and you have access to that ISO right now, I want you to take a look at it and make sure that's the one you have. Any questions before we continue? Any questions before we continue? All right, so what we're going to do in downloads is move this into a folder called temp. Have we created a folder on your C drive called temp yet? Have we done that in this class? Yes, no, maybe?
No.
Yes.
I don't restart.
Okay. So if you click on this computer, mine is named, but if you click on where it says this computer, you can select the C drive. If you go into the view and select details or large icons, you should see a folder called temp. And if you don't have that folder yet, what I want you to do is I want you to right click the white space and then create a new folder called temp with a capital T, T-E-M-P, okay? Now, when you downloaded your media file from the Microsoft Azure Education site, what you may not have realized is that this, all by itself, this digital file acts like, behaves like, and executes like a plastic disk. So if you go to the Office Max and you buy Windows, you'll get a thumb drive or you'll get a disk. And you can get a DVD disc or a CD disc, and that's how they used to come. Now they typically use thumb drives, or you can download it off the internet. If you double click this, you get a chance to look inside of it, and you get to see the actual media that's used to install an operating system. Now this is good and bad, because some of you have Windows machines that see an ISO file, and what happens is that your laptop or your PC says, oh, this is a disk. This is an install disk, and it opens right up, and here's this little provocative blinky in front of you that says setup. And here's what happens next. What you didn't know is that in the background, it's assigned a full drive letter, a whole new drive letter. So instead of just having your C drive and maybe a DVD drive, what you have now instead is an extra drive letter. It could be D or E on yours, okay? So what you've done is you've kind of loaded the gun, all right? Does everybody understand what I'm saying? You've loaded the gun, and that can be dangerous from 2 points of view. If you go ahead and out of curiosity, and I'm not saying anybody did this, but if you go in here and you say, oh, setup, I can get server on my system, because you want Windows Server on your system, and you think that's pretty cool, right? And back in the day when you had different versions of Windows, you know, when you loaded a new version or a different version of Windows, it would give you the chance to install that alongside your existing version. So you could get Windows 8 and you could actually boot into like Windows XP or Windows 7. You could boot into Windows 7 or Windows 8. If you loaded the new version on top of your old one, the install method would say, oh, do you want to stamp on top of the old version and overwrite it, or do you want peaceful coexistence? Would you like to be able to boot into Windows 8 and Windows 10 and just choose? So now you're in the old school world. Yeah, oh, this is familiar. Now you're in the new Windows 10. Windows 10 looks different, behaves different than that older Windows 7 or Windows 8. Here's the thing. You don't want to load the gun here, because this version of server has a nasty habit of just loading and then overwriting everything on your host. What you would rather do is use the eject option. And that's really important, because if you reference that ISO and your system, if you have happy fingers and it assigns a drive letter, when you want to use it to create a virtual machine, it's already in use. And when you try to build the virtual machine, it's going to say, yeah, there's that media is in use, or it's read-only, right? I don't know if you know this, but in the computer world, there's something about two different applications accessing the same file at the same time. What am I saying? If you're editing a video and then you play the video and you want to save a change, you can't if it's open in another application. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but that's the conundrum that you end up with. So that's something to consider. We don't want this open on the host machine. And if it is, the remedy is very simple. If you see DVD drive and the DVD drive shows this on your host machine, what I want you to do before something very bad happens is select this and then right-click it and use the right mouse button and then select eject. And then you can exhale. Now there's one other thing that's really important. Most of the time when people download stuff, it ends up in which folder? Downloads, thank you very much. It ends up in downloads. And did you know that downloads is actually a part of a user profile that could be loaded into OneDrive? So depending on which version of Windows you're actually using, some of those versions of Windows love to take all of your documents, all of your downloads, all of your desktop, all of your videos, all of your pictures. And if you've clicked the happy button to store your stuff in the cloud because you want it to be safe, meaning you did something like this. You went into here, you went into update and security, and then somewhere, when it went into Windows security, you saw a little blinky that said, you don't have OneDrive set up yet. You need to set up OneDrive because this is going to help protect you against ransomware. And as soon as everybody says ransomware, everybody goes, oh yeah, I want to do that. But when you do that, all of your documents, your data, your desktop, your shortcuts, everything is out in OneDrive. So why do you care? You don't want to access install media from the cloud while you're building a local virtual machine. I don't know if I'm making sense here, but what's going to happen is that this file, if it's left in downloads, here's where downloads actually is. Now, is everyone ready to experience a little deja vu? Does everybody know what deja vu means? Deja vu?
Yeah.
Deja vu. So if I click the date modified button and put these in chronological order from top to bottom, I'm in the downloads folder. But if I really want to know the home of that downloads folder, the actual path to my downloads folder with my login, here's what I got to do. I gotta go into the C drive, I have to go into the users folder, I have to find my user login. Then I have to go into downloads and, oh, deja vu. Put another way, if I have one cloud engaged, my downloads isn't local in the users folder on the disk. It's in the cloud. And so what I want you to do is to think that you need a temp folder on every system, every single system that you build. And then here's why. Whether it's the host system or the virtual system, if you have a temp folder that's on the C drive on your main hard disk, you know it's local on that hard disk. You know where it is. It's a simple path. You don't have to get crazy. And if you ever have to do troubleshooting, instead of having to enter this command, oh my gosh, where's my stuff? All you have to do is go cd temp. Oh, can't find it? Oh, let's do that again. I know. It's a main directory off the C drive. So I'm going to put a backslash in there. Oh, now I know where to find it, right? So what am I saying? If you ever end up having to work in character mode, command line interface mode, where it's all character based, you're going to want your junk in a folder or a directory that has a short, practical, easy to remember label, like temp. So I want you to move, if you haven't done this yet, and I know I went to a lot of extra trouble to explain the importance of temp, but every year, a student ends up having a tangle and they can't clear a simple thing in one of their solutions. And then we find out, OMG, it's in the cloud. And that's why the screen won't change, because it has to download from the mothership out on the internet. And it's only 60 gigabytes large, which means you're going to hose your internet connection for your entire family in your household for the better part of a day. That's painful, okay? So that's one of the realities of the cloud stuff that we're working in. So the goal of this class is to give you a chance to work in the virtual systems realm, but we have two flavors of virtual systems, and I want to call attention to this. We have virtual systems out in the internet, and we call that the cloud. And then we have virtual machines that we have locally that we can touch and lay our hands on. And I'm going to spend most of the time in this class doing that. All right. So we're going to go ahead and move our install media, and I'm going to find where my temp folder is, and I'm going to slide a copy over into temp. And I've already got one in there. Okay. So I have my install media in the temp folder. Now when I work with it, it's all, my host machine knows how to give it to other virtual machines without a problem. Okay, everybody with me? So what I'd like you to do now is to take the first steps of your 2.0 server VM creation. So we're going to walk through the steps of a hands-on solution together this week. And you're going to build your server, and that's the first thing we're going to do. And then you'll be primed and ready to do all of the assignments that are in there in module 2. Okay. Now I have not posted 2.0 yet. So I'll reference this video. I'll put a link for this video. I'll tell you to do the thing that we just did. Step 1 of your 2.0 solution is to move the ISO from the downloads folder where it's a part of your user profile, which may be stored in the cloud. And instead, we want to put it in a very simple folder, and we've done that. That's the end of step 1. Step 2 is to create or pre-allocate your space. Now, each of you did this. You went ahead and did this, where you optimized your personal technology, right? Everybody did that? Okay, so if you optimized your personal technology, then what you should be able to do is to go to your Windows File Explorer and select your C select this computer. And you should be able to see that your C drive has at least some gigabytes left. Now, all of you have to have at least 48 gigabytes, 48 gigabytes, actually 49 gigabytes you can spare. I don't want you, now if you have 60 gigabytes, I don't want you to have 10 gigs left, okay? So this is gonna be a challenge, but what I want you to do is I want you to look at this screen and make sure that on your C drive, it shows that you have some free space, and I have 600 gigs. I have a terabyte hard drive. Now, maybe you don't have something that's big. Maybe you have a 200 gig hard drive and you only have 50 gigs left. If that's the case, then trim down the size of the hard disk that I'm asking you to build and make it 40 gigs instead of 48. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? All right, now, I want you to also note that I plugged in a very large USB drive. So one of the things you can do to make more room for yourself, and I want you to hear this, is you can go to the Office Max, buy a very large thumb drive for a very small amount of money, and you can move some of your videos or your pictures or your other stuff off your system and onto that thumb drive so that you have adequate space there. If you do this next step and you're not careful and you only have a few gigs of hard disk left, well, let's just say it can get pretty awkward. So what I'm going to ask you to do next is to share with me how many gigs of free space you have in the chat, but do it anonymously, because I don't want you to put your stuff out there in front of the class. If you respond to everyone in chat in Zoom, I want you to respond to my prompt in chat, and I want you to hit the pull down, and instead of responding to everyone, I want you to respond only to me and tell me how many gigs of hard drive space free do you have, okay, at this time, right now. Now, some of you were thinking, well, wait a minute, we did some of that when we were doing our optimizing personal technology. Well, it's been a couple of weeks. And you'd be surprised at how often enough space in a couple of weeks becomes no space at all. So I want the current space available right now. Another thing you can do is you can kind of right-click the C drive and pull up properties, and a cute little window will come up, and you can read how much free space you have from there. And so I want the whole number right here, all right? So let me type this in the chat. I'm going to say, please respond to me alone. How many gigabytes of C drive hard disk do you have left unused? I'm being very specific here, right? And I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to stop sharing and I'll stop recording. I want everybody to take a moment to respond to that, okay? We're going to share the screen again. So what I'd like you to do now is to pre-build the virtual hard disk that you're going to use for your VirtualBox standard server 2022 system. And then you're going to use the key. And I'll show you exactly how to use the key in our next class, but I'm not going to do it right here. So what we're going to do now is start VirtualBox. Every one of you should first, as a practice, whenever you start VirtualBox and you're like, okay, I'm gonna build a new machine, you have to make sure that you have the latest version of VirtualBox. And you have to make sure that if you have any updates that are still trying to post in Windows, that those are clear. So it's always a good thing as a matter of reflex. The moment you see VirtualBox, you're gonna think, okay, have I finished my updates? Let's do this. Do I have any updates I need to complete? Are all my updates posted? I'm going to go ahead and hit this and make sure it doesn't start barking at me that I have to start building something. If my host isn't clear with updates, I'm going to start a process with my VirtualBox and it's going to get hamstrung. Can everybody see this update? What kind of update is that? It is Microsoft Defender, which is antivirus, and that's cool. Those are small, they're efficient, they don't require a reboot, they happen all the time, we're good to go. What I don't want to see is, oh, we have a service pack. Oh, we have a cumulative update. You're going to have to reboot after we're finished. And it's going to start doing funny things to your system while you're trying to build the virtual components of the virtual machine, and that's going to muck everything up while you're trying to build the virtual components of the virtual machine the first time. And that begins with the virtual hard disk. Can you have a computer without a boot disk? Yes or no? That's not a trick question. For those of you that have worked with computers, can you have a computer that doesn't have a disk to boot from?
No.
No, you can't. There's no persistent memory. Now, all right, there's some weird stuff they're doing in special laboratories where the answer to that could be no. And we're going to use those systems when the aliens come and try to eat your brain. But we're not talking about that today. All right, what I want you to do is I want you to go to the option here and click on one of the bullets for either of these. Now, I did say that in tools, this option used to be in tools in older versions. Oh, have I checked to see if I have the latest version of VirtualBox yet? No. I'm going to check for updates. And I want to make sure that I at least get nothing to update. So I'm ready to proceed. I'm going to go into one of these machines on the bullet points. And I don't see, well, I do see media. Oh, so I can click media. One way to get into the disk manager or media manager is to go to the tools, click the bullets and select media. The other way to do it, I stand corrected. When we're in file manager here, that has to do with the file system inside the virtual machine. So what you want, you don't want that. You may want that later, but we don't need that now. You're going to want to use the media option. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a disk. Now, we have a chance to use a VDI, a VHD, or a VMDK. If I were using Hyper-V to build my virtual machine, and I wasn't using VirtualBox, I would select VHD. And actually, I would use the newer version of that extension called VHDX. But in this case, because I'm using VirtualBox, I'm going to use VDI. I'm going to use the VirtualBox disk image. If I wanted to move my virtual machine to another system, and it was a Microsoft virtual machine host, I would want to use VHDX. But if I knew I was going to be sticking with VirtualBox Manager, I'd use VDI. Now let's just make sure we understand that. VMTK has to do with something called VMware. Has anyone ever heard of VMware before? Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we're going to pre-allocate the full size. And the cool part about this class today is that we are close to being done, because in the next 60 seconds, we're going to start this process. And then for some of you, it's going to run a while. Now, the cool part is if you did the optimizing your personal technology properly, it should take between 5 and 6 minutes to complete. If you get halfway into 3:30, if we look at the clock right now, and you're getting halfway to 3:30 and it's still creating the disk, you didn't do your optimizing personal technology, or you need to do it again. You didn't complete all the steps. I don't want to put anybody on that spot, but what I do want to do is finish completing the virtual disk, creating the virtual disk. That's the second task of your 2.0 solution, creating server virtual machine. And I'll post a separate video for the final 3 steps that you need to take to set up your server virtual machine. So you'll have this video, and then you'll have like a part 2. Here's step 3, 4, and 5. Does everybody get what I'm saying? Everybody? Okay. So When your build for the disk is finished, you're gonna wait until I post the video on step 3, step 4, and step 5. And then you'll just follow the video and finish the creation. At that point, you should be able to submit your virtual machine and show that it's running, okay? Everybody got what I'm saying? Okay. This screen says storage on the physical hard disk. We're going to select pre-allocate full size. Now we want to select pre-allocate full size because we want to designate that one big chunk of your host hard disk as the virtual hard disk for your virtual machine. You're going to do this. You're going to click next, and then where are you going to put your virtual hard disk? Are you going to try to put it in your user profile, which might be in the cloud? And this is 48 gigs large? No. See, this is why it's important to slow down and to remember what we talked about at the beginning of class. We're actually going to create another directory, and we're going to call it VHD, okay? So you're going to open up File Manager, you're going to click on the C drive, and if you have not already created a folder, a directory called VHD in those words, and I mean with those letters, that's what you want to do. You're going to do that. Okay? Now you'll notice that I already have a VHDX in here. That was for another class I'm demonstrating. But this is where I put my virtual hard disks. Okay? So in your C drive, you're going to have a temp folder and you're going to have a VHD folder. I'm going to go back to my virtual hard disk and I'm going to select my VHD folder. I want to make sure that if I click up here, it says C:\VHD right here. I'm going to give my server a name. I want all of you to pick a distinctive one-word name that's special to you. I'm gonna pick the name Smurf. I'm not going into why. I'm going to name my server Smurf. Okay? I could even name it Papa Smurf. I think I'm going to do that because servers are big and bad. And if I'm going to do this right, I think I'm going to name my server Papa Smurf, all one word. And this is going to become the C drive of Papa Smurf. You're going to do the same thing right now. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to pick the name of a character that you can express in a couple of short letters, in one string of letters, and then you're going to put a -C. So instead of using the new virtual disk.vdi baloney down here, I'm going to say Papa Smurf -C, and that's what I'm going to type. Papa Smurf -C. Now that's the virtual hard disk, and why by naming it, I know what system it belongs to, Papa Smurf, and I also know what drive letter it is, the C drive. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay, I'm going to say save, and now I'm going to change this bad boy so that it reads 48. Oh, no, 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 no. If I use 48, I'm not going to have 48 gigs exactly. So what I'd like to do is add another gigabyte to that. I'll make it 49 because when I install the media, you know what? Let's be a little conscientious of disk space. We'll use 47. 4 and 7 are lucky numbers. We want this to go smoothly. So not that we're superstitious, but if I have 47, that means by the time I finish installing the operating system, the hidden partitions and the recovery partitions are going to take up some disk space, and I'll still have 46 gigabytes left. And that's just right. So I'm going to put 47 gigabytes. I want you to do the same thing. and I want you to click finish. Now, when you click finish, a window will appear and away you go. If you've been doing your optimizing your personal technology, in the time that it's taken me to talk through this here, you should be at 5%. Everybody see 5%? It only took a few seconds for me to be at 5%. I have optimized this thing like a banshee. So it's a standard hard drive. It's not an SSD hard drive. You might have a laptop with an SSD hard drive and it's much faster. Right now I'm at 10%. Look, 10%. Everybody, there it is, 10%. It only took a few seconds. Now, if you're not keeping pace with this video, it means that you probably didn't do your optimizing your personal technology quite to the extent that you needed to. You can, if you want to, cancel this, go back, optimizing your personal technology. You can do it after the fact too. It's just, it takes a lot longer to do it after you build stuff like this. At this point, what we're going to do is let the build run its course. We're going to end our class today, and then you're going to get a link for step 3, step 4, and step 5 of the 2.0 solution called Building Server VM, or Build Server VM, okay? Any questions before we clear today? Please finish steps 3, 4, and 5 by following the video so that when you come to class, you'll be able to put a picture of your running machine into the solution and you'll be 5 points on the board already, okay? I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us.